please welcome Owen Jones.
It's been such a quiet year, there's so little to talk about. Honestly, it's just flown by with so few events. It's great to be here. Things must be desperate if we're turning up on Saturday nights for events like this. Blimey. I just say what I see momentum as, and I'm sure we all have our own ideas, and that's part, I think, of what makes this so important. This is a grassroots, bottom-up, pluralistic movement where there'll be differences. We won't always agree on this, that, or the other. We'll have different strategies. We'll have different focuses. But we're here because the differences between us in this room are infinitely smaller than the differences between us and those with power. And for many, many years, sometimes, let's be honest, we've sometimes gone a bit people's front of Judea. The stakes are too high, and we've come to realise that. And that's what this is about. We're coming together, we're putting together whatever divisions we had in the past in one common cause. And during the summer, we saw this huge outbreak of enthusiasm that nobody, whatever their position on the Labour leadership, could ever have imagined. And it was part, this idea was kind of this massive organised campaign by Trotskyists. I didn't realise there were 250,000 sleeper Trotskyists in Britain. But it was about people who were just fed up. And they were angry at how things were, but they wanted something more important than anger, and that was hope. Hope that things could be so different from how they are. And that's what this is about. It's about not letting that enthusiasm, that huge enthusiasm that bubbled up over the summer, dissipate. That would be scandalous if that was allowed to happen. And that enthusiasm is not just full of people who grumpily oppose the Conservatives. It's full of people, from my experience, who want to do things, who want to get involved, and want to change society in whatever way they can. And that's what Momentum's all about. It's no sinister campaign, as I've seen the rather imaginative, creative stories in the media. Bless them, imaginative lots of them. But it's not about that. It's about harnessing that enthusiasm to change things. And we've had this leadership election, but now everybody has to become a leader. Everybody has to go out into their communities and do things. And that's why today's campaign, which Momentum were absolutely driven, Democracy SOS, this fantastic Momentum campaign, is one example of that. This government is trying to disenfranchise huge numbers of people. And the people they're going to throw off the electoral register are the sorts of people who are least likely to vote for the Conservatives. It's an attempt to stitch up the electoral system in favour of the Tories, but it goes beyond that. It's a fundamental principle about democracy, about defending our democracy. And this is why it's so important. Our ancestors fought at such cost and such sacrifice for this democracy. They paid with their lives. They were attacked, they were demonised, they were persecuted in some of the most extreme ways imaginable. It's not for us to allow that democracy that our ancestors fought for at such cost to be undermined by a government that only won a quarter of eligible voters a few months ago. And we're not going to let that happen. We're not. What we're going to do is make sure that every single person who's eligible is on that register. And we won't just do that by knocking on doors. We've got to give them a reason to trust politics again, because so many people no longer see politics as an answer to their everyday problems and their needs. And this is why the hope thing is so important. Because at the moment, this is politics of despair. That injustice is like the weather, which is rubbish at the moment. That we can complain about it raining, which I have, because I have a very soggy left foot. But we can complain about it raining, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's just the way the world is. But the politics of hope says differently. It says that all the problems, all the injustices that we face can be overcome with enough determination, with enough solidarity, with enough courage, just as our ancestors did. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to give people a reason to believe in politics again. That's what we have to do. And then we're going to make them not just grumpily march off to the polling stations, but go to the polling stations full of hope that they believe that politics can actually answer their problems. That's the goal. And that's what this movement's all about. And I'm so glad people who are involved with it today, you should be very proud of what you've done. It's only the beginning, and we've got to focus on that. The other campaign, which I think Momentum really has to throw themselves into, is the attack on tax credits by this government, a work penalty introduced by the Conservatives. Now, you know what? This lot, they patronise workers as hard-working Britons doing the right thing, and then drive 3 million families, 3 million working families, even further into hardship than many of them already are, in a country where most people in poverty are in work, already getting up in the morning to earn their poverty day after day, sorry, just realised people over there. And what this is going to do is going to mean that 3 million working families are £1,350 worse off, but millions of other families as well, also punished by this government. And this is a government, a Conservative party, trying to rebrand themselves as the party of working people. That's the sound of satire being cruelly bludgeoned to death, incidentally. But this is the reality of what's going to do. It's going to mean the kids of supermarket workers and cleaners are going to have fewer hot meals in their bellies. They're going to grow up in ever colder homes. They're going to have parents ever more stressed about how they pay the next bills. And disproportionately those affected are going to be women. Disproportionately those affected are communities like this community here. So we can't let them get away with it. We have to argue against that work penalty, but we're not just against things. That's not what this is about. We're for something else. And we're for a genuine living wage, with a starting point of a minimum wage of £10 an hour. That will reduce spending on tax credits without going. And trade union rights. And we've got to make the case for the trade unions, because they're the biggest democratic movement in this country. They represent everyone from shelf stackers to call centre workers, care workers, firefighters, the pillars of this society. And if we had stronger trade unions, then millions of workers, even before the crash, wouldn't have been plunged into further hardship, ever more dependent on in-work benefits, ever more dependent on personal debt in one of the most personally indebted countries on earth. And that is why the fight for genuine trade union rights is the battle for workers, the real wealth creators who keep this country ticking day after day. That battle is about workers' rights, but it's also about putting money in their pockets, and that will reduce spending on tax credits as well, and it's good for our economy, because when low-paid workers get money in their pockets, they go out and spend it. And at the same time, let's fight for real, good, skilled, well-paid jobs, like Germany, which have taken on the environmental crisis by investing in renewable energy industries of the future, taking on the environmental crisis and the jobs crisis as well. So we can be for things. We're not just against things. We're about the politics of hope. So for me, these are the two campaigns that Momentum could really contribute in, that every single one of us can go out into our communities and actually go out and fight for something. Not fight some sort of factional politics where we're these Machiavellian factions who are just positioning for influence. We're not about that. We're about creating a bottom-up grassroots community movement. And our aim, no pressure, has to be to build the biggest progressive political movement this country has seen for generations. And it's well within our grasp. It's well within our grasp. So friends, that's my argument. That's the argument for me tonight. So friends, let's have the proud traditions of our ancestors. I always end on this because it's important. Everything we have, every right, every freedom were won, not because the powerful woke up one day and thought, oh, I'm feeling generous, I'll give women the vote for a laugh. People had to fight at great cost for all those rights and freedoms. The trade unionists who fought for the rights and dignity of working people. The Chartists who fought for democracy. The suffragettes who, in our Lord, but in their time, were hated and reviled and locked up with tubes forced down their necks. The people who fought for the welfare state and the NHS in the teeth of overwhelming opposition from the powerful. Those who fought racism and sexism and homophobia. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Everything we have won because some of your mothers and your fathers and your grandmothers and your grandfathers and your ancestors before them, they didn't accept their lot in life. They didn't accept injustice was like the weather. They knew that if they had enough determination and courage, that they could change society. That is our tradition. So let's have that same courage. Let's have that same resilience. Let's build this genuine grassroots movement that every single person in this room can contribute to be a leader, to build that grassroots movement. Let's go out there, change society, have fun while we do it, and in the months to come, if we do that, then who knows? Maybe we can start laying the foundations for a society not run as a racket, for the tax avoiders, the bankers, the poverty-paying bosses, but a society run in the interest of the majority. Thank you.